weeks ago, I reviewed a book called Shadows of Empire, which was a Shadowdark Warhammer Fantasy role-playing sort of crossover book, which was sort of like a sort of campaign setting, which I absolutely adored. And from there, I got talking to the creator, Fenris77, who told me he was working on a sort of specific sort of campaign setting. And yesterday, it was finally released on DriveThruRPG. I was absolutely delighted when Fenris sent me a copy. He was like, "Do you want to have a look at this?" I was like, "Of course I do. Been looking forward to this for several weeks now." And so, yeah, today I'm going to go through it's Deadlands, this setting is called, and it's twice the size of Shadows of Empire. You will need a copy of that to play this because there are a couple of rules that cross over. So yeah, it's nicely built in this Warhammer Shadowdark world out. Okay, to fully explain what's included in the book, it's just easier to go to DriveThruRPG so you can see it here. So here we have the DriveThruRPG page for the region setting for Shadows of Empire. And it says here, this is the first setting. So hopefully go and support this. It's absolutely amazing. Obviously, we want to see more. Well, I definitely want to see more. And I think actually the feedback on my Shadows of Empire video was pretty good. So yeah, I think a lot of us want to see this sort of Warhammer Shadowdark sort of crossover world. This is 86 pages, so it's about twice the size of the first piece of work, and it does actually include all the maps separately, so you can just easily load them into a VTT if that's where you're going to go. But the Deadland region is so it's blasted and plagued by undead. So long ago, a sorcerer, some sorcery went very wrong, and the lands of Argentine ended up with foul necrotic energies. Now, there's a reason for that, which you'll actually get into in the main campaign setting. Actually, as you go through the hex crawl, because this does include a campaign setting and a hex crawl and a base of operations in Fort Durance and variety of NPCs and factions, and also if you've ever fancied playing not Skaven, because they're called Gutterkin in this, there's a basically playable characters to play non-Skaven in this world, which is yeah, I did know that was coming because Fenris did when I talked about the sort of Skaven in Shadows of Empire, he did say that I'm going to make them playable races, which is amazing if you are a Skaven fan. If you're not a Skaven fan, actually, and you just fancy a more evil aligned campaign, it's good to have these sort of options. There's also a 4-page zombie bestiary at the back and some expanded rules for zombie. And then I say we've got this adventure set at the back, which is for levels 4 to 6. Yes, I didn't pay for this, for full disclosure, and I haven't actually been asked to review it, so Fenris just sent me a copy because he knew I would probably review it if I liked it. So here we are. If you are considering buying this, please do consider using my affiliate link, because, say, as much as I didn't buy this, any money that is generated on the affiliate link I then put towards buying something else to then turn it into reviews for more content for the channel, to do more things like this. And for everyone that is using it, I deeply thank you. It really is helpful. Okay, so let's just get straight over and show you what's included in the book. And I was going to show you the maps. Actually, I will show you the maps. So if you're a player and you want to play in a Warhammer Shadowdark crossover world, you kind of need to go away now. There's a lot of spoilers going to come up in this. Not deliberate, but I can't really talk about what's going on in the book without spoilers. So by all means, send this over to your Games Master. If you're a player and you haven't actually wanted to Games Master anything as yet, and you're tempted, again, this is another good place to start. So stick around if you're going to be doing that. But if you're an exclusive player, time to scoot. So here we have the front cover of Deadlands, a regional settings guide. And also what I'm going to do is show you just what's included in the maps. So you'll see the maps for the adventure that is coming up towards the end. So we have 4 maps here. So our Diablo, levels 1, level 2, level 3, and then the bottom level 4. And you can see they're nicely keyed, which will make a lot of sense as we get into the adventure at the back of the book. But I think that's all I'm going to talk about the maps for now. So you've got these 4 that are nicely included. So you will be able to just put them into the VTT. So let's just jump back to the front cover here. So here we have Shadows of Empire, Deadlands, a regional setting. So getting into the book, It's written by Fenris77. Some additional artwork here. Up to page 48 is the sort of basic plot, hex crawl. Here's the details of the world. We then go through the hex crawl rule, the zombie beastry and how zombies are going to work. Gutterkin campaign, Skaven. Fort Durance, which is your campaign. So it's the town where the campaign is going to be set, and actually the main place from the hex crawl. We've then got the adventure, and then there is actually a beastry right at the back, which isn't detailed. It's not hyperlinked. I'm sure it's coming if I nag hard enough. But what you've got is 2 mountain ranges, and Gemel Valley is the valley in the middle. Named after, obviously, David. Maybe. I don't know. I didn't ask. But what you've got is the history going on in here, and because both of the mountains are full of silver mines, well, full of silver initially, what you had is the Empire came in for the eastern side, and they sort of took over, drained out the mines, then left, and just kind of left this void of what was going on in there over the 100 years. We'll then talk about how the Deadlands were formed. Okay, so several centuries ago, the Argentine mountains were, like the other mountains, full of silver. The dwarfs that had been there for centuries were working the mines and collecting the silver, as dwarfs do. And obviously the Empire then became aware of the silver in there. So they then turned up, battle ensued. Then a magic spell was cast to try to sort of fight back the Empire. And lo and behold, all the dead turned to zombies. Hence the reason it is now the Deadlands. There are reasons for why the spell went wrong, which we'll come on to as we get into the book, and especially it becomes more apparent as you get into the main adventure as well. And then, so the last 50 years, there is this fort here, Fort Durance, which was one of the main sort of the holding bastions of places where people sort of lived to protect the valley. And it's been vacant for years now. People have started repopulating. They are starting to work the mines again, despite the Deadlands and all the undead and zombies being around. There's your plot. Watch out for the zombies. Talking about the geography of the area, obviously you have got a valley surrounded by 2 mountains. The lowlands is very sort of swampy and damp, but also full of lots of undead. There's clouds of mosquito and midges. It's a horrible place to be. I'm kind of thinking like the Deadlands. Is it the Deadlands in Lord of the Rings? Dead marshes, isn't it? So I think it's probably, that's how I've got it in there. And then the rest of it is these big higher escarpments, which are sort of almost sheer cliff faces where the valley's been gorged out by big glaciers over the years. So it's really hard to sort of climb out and pass. GM advice here in play: keep lines of sight short, the terrain frustrating. Straight lines are difficult to navigate. Sounds echo oddly off the exposed rocks and hilly terrains. It's going to be a bleak and horrible place for the players to get round. We then look at the hex crawling rules. It says, it does refer back to page 90 of the Shadowdark rule book. But here, the PCs can travel 8 hours a day. These hexes are 4 hours to cross, where I'm sure in my head, Shadowdark, it's normally 8 hours, but I do read an awful lot of different things as well. But obviously it depends on the terrain. And I think I'm going to find, as especially as they're going up the mountains and cliff sides, then it is going to probably be a lot slower as they're going through, because it's going to be more difficult and arduous terrain in here as well. Danger level across the most places: safest all the way to unsafe. But that is going to be modified by the Wandering Dead rules. The Wandering Dead rules here, so there are an awful lot of zombies around. Your players are going to have to do things like avoiding drawing attention to them, making a lot of noise, because as they then travel around, zombies could wander in or out. But more importantly, an area that was clear yesterday might be choked with undead tomorrow. So to reflect this, the Games Master is to roll a d6 each day before travel. On a result of 1 or 2, the path ahead is there's more undead than normal. It's going to just bring this constant threat of undead around. The following page is looking at encounters. We'll look at the frequency of the roll for random encounters, the starting distance, reactions. Most of the undead don't care about reactions, but we'll come on to that actually when we get to the undead part. But the Deadlands does suck. Everything is hostile except for other travellers. Okay, so bandits, of course, will pretend to be nice, but are more likely to be heading for traps. But in here we've got ghouls, dire wolves. There is a swarming rule here In an encounter, if the encounter is loud enough or zombies wander close enough, the GM should communicate with the swarming may be a consequence. In these cases, roll 1d6 and check for additional encounter. On a roll of 1, you generate the counter type for zombie results only. Okay, and so on the right hand side here, we've got daytime encounters and nighttime encounters. And if the area has gone risky, then you'll be rolling +1 on this. So it's hence the reason why you could get to 9 on here. And the variety of, well, the daytime, as you'd imagine, isn't quite as bad. There are a couple of things that aren't going to necessarily kill them, but zombies in here are quite frequent. And then as you get into nighttime, it's pretty much all zombies. I think it's all, well, apart from one here. So we've got a zombie hunting pack, which are ghast and ghouls. So yes, you've actually got ghouls hunting zombies as well. You can add in direwolves. The D20 table over here is pretty good. This is just D20 of random things that are going to happen in here. So the trail here is lined by the zombie heads mounted on spikes, lingering stench of rotten decay. So these are just, you're going to roll this, and they're not interactions. They're just going to give you an opportunity to flesh out the Deadlands themselves. Then get into this hex crawl map that I don't overly like, because what we're seeing is a lot of the artwork is over the numbers. I know you can work it out because it's quite obvious that what's here is going to be 505. But I kind of think if you're going to do these things, you should kind of flesh out to make sure you can clearly see it. I was slightly confused as well. We've got the river, then the river disappears, but it's obvious here because what we've got in the middle is the swamp here. But from a workable point of view, it's good, because any sort of hex crawl map is nice to have. We have got some static locations over here. So for example, we've got Old Smoky here, which is a volcano that hasn't quite gone off ever. Might be coming. Parasidio mine over here, which is where the adventure is set. We've got a Manor of Ruins as well at 208, which is just down by Old Smoky. Fort Durance, which is the main place, and conveniently right in the middle of the map. And then we've got a couple more fixed locations. So we've got the swamps, the Mirror Lake, which I was talking about, the lake down here, the Tower of Hapsput, and then Hess Brothers Mine, which is a mine that is about to go up for auction. So it's quite nice. I do like a pre-made hex crawl with fixed locations and a sort of an idea of what's going to go on at some of those locations, because this is all a good, I'd say, well, it's a campaign setting, isn't it? So it's giving you lots of hooks and ideas. The Restless Undead. So the next chapter is going to talk us through dealing with zombies, their behaviour and swarms. So the Deadlands undead have developed their own ecology and behaviours, which is detailed in this section. So unless they're trying to eat your face, zombies have a few predictable ways about them. So you can roll a d4 just to see what they're doing. They may be in torpor, so they might be in some sort of hibernation. They may be milling, so just moving slowly at half close speed. They could be swarming towards loud noises, or they might be in full-on frenzy. Fire is dangerous, so there's a nice little key here on the right-hand side. At night, fire is visible. It will provide stimulus for the zombies to swarm, so making campfires is a dangerous thing. Adventurers will have to keep cold at cold camp or conceal their fires if they don't wish to be swarmed. So yeah, it's camping out at night is going to be a very dangerous thing for the players to be involved in. Then got 2 pages of lots of different types of zombies, including a zombie grizzly bear and a zombie hulk. So the zombie hulk, it came from ogres, owlbears, trolls, things like that. We do have some howlers, which are from sort of wolves and giant dogs, and then the zombie lord, which more often than not is leading a band of zombies. So yeah, they're over the years, because of the corruption, these zombies have actually developed their own hierarchy, technically. And there's some rules here for designing a zombie lord. So if you want to create one from scratch, it just tells you which stats to adjust, some special abilities that they're going to have, as well as a d8 of what they're going to look like. Which is, so if we rolled a 6, for example, he might be a noble knight of the brazen sun, an orc cleaver still wedged deep between his neck and his shoulder. And I like that. I do like the fact that you can just sort of flesh out these zombie lords a little bit. 2 pages then on zombie herds, how they are going to work. So a herd is a deadly situation that the players are going to want to avoid. This is your full-on Walking Dead trying to get into any sort of encampment. This talks about hundreds of zombies, and these are, so the players aren't going to be able to fight through these. Realistically, you should frame it, as it says in this little section here about, frame it, let the players be aware of the stakes that are around, and realistically forewarn them what they want to do. And the players will have a few options, I'd say a few, predominantly run away or distract them. It does say you can try and run through them. And if you do, every round you're going to be, the first round you're going to take a D3 damage plus zombie rot. Then every round you're still in the group, you're going to take a D4, D6, D8. It's going to keep going. So running through them realistically isn't an option. Maybe let one person run through them while everyone else runs away. The guy you don't like in the party. And we've got a D12 here just to make the zombies herds a little bit more interesting. So let's say if we rolled an 8 here, they're going to be naked. Oblivious. Obviously the victims have some great violence, great gashes, missing limbs, etc. That's quite funny, actually being chased by a bunch of naked zombies. We then get into the Gutterkin campaign. I said from outset, this was one of the bits that really excited me. This is the ability to, I thought when Fenris spoke to me about this is going to be included, I thought it was going to be a campaign. I didn't actually realise this is going to be a full-blown ability to play a non-Skaven Gutterkin. 3 different ancestries. So we've got the Whiteford here, which are more prone to sorceries, and they're going to roll or corruption tests with advantage, because corruption is good for these. Blackford, which are they're sort of like your striking fighting force, so they're going to get +1 attack bonus to attack and damage rolls. And then we've got the common one, which have got this really funny keen nose. So once per encounter, you may ask the GM, "What do I smell?" and they have to answer truthfully. But more importantly, they get claws, who have advantage on all checks to climb. Then they have got some of their own specific classes as well. Yeah, they can pick from Fighter, Thief, or Wizard from the Shadowdark Cool Rule Book. Or if you want to go down the Assassin, you're going to need a Curse Scrolls 2. Or if you want to go down the Seer route, so the Holy Servant of the Rat King, you're going to need Curse Scroll 3. They serve and worship the Krylik Shah, which is the Rat King, who embodies all savagery, greed, megalomania, and cowardice that exemplifies all Gutterkins. So yeah, Gutterkins aren't the bravest of creatures. Given the choice, they'll sort of sneak into somewhere, take what they need, and then sneak out without having any sort of attacks. Hence the reason they have assassins. You can gain the King's favour, and this is forwarding for extreme cowardice and self-interest. It's just generally being selfish, and from that you're going to get the King's favour, which effectively is just going to give you another reroll. But it does say right at the bottom here, you may never give your King's favour token to a companion, because acts of selfishness. Every 2 levels in Shadowdark, you get the ability to take another talent from your class, but not here. If you're going to go Gutterkin, you can actually pick one of these talents as opposed to rolling your class talent. And these were things like, so we can have the Rat King's Blessing, so you have advantage on all checks to lie, hide and sneak, or the Armourer, where you can modify all your pistols and handguns to Blackfire Crystal infused ammunition. So Blackfire Crystal, we're going to find out about that as we get into the adventure, but this basically is Warpstone in this world. I've then got some stats over here for Rat Ogre Demolisher, Blacklock Engineer, Voidwing Grenader. Some of these things will actually come up in the campaign, but in the adventure setting. But the good thing is about the adventure is all the stats are in there. I'm going to talk very highly once we get to the adventure. But then looking at Fort Durance, which is the main fort in the middle of the Hex Crawl, and talked about the history side. And Fort Durance now is, because it's become very well, the mines, so it goes from boom to bust, back to boom. So I've kind of got this like a sort of Deadwood type setting, because what you've got is you've got the fort with your palisades. But because the town is now spilling out, because it's become so big and popular, it's actually spilling out outside of the fort itself. So it means inside the walls, they are crammed, dirty inside the walls. New constructions fill every available inch of space, and oddly thin taverns sit where alleys used to be. Outside now, though, is a shanty town. called New Durance, which is even worse. It's not even the remotest hint of planned organised warrens of shops, temples, so everything's just been sort of thrown up. Fires are commonplace, and also wandering zombies. There's no walls, so zombies are just going to come in here at night. Over the far right hand side here, why is there no map of Durance? And that's just for the Games Master to decide what they want. It's designed just to be a sort of stopping point, but if you are going to do a main campaign setting adventure here, you're going to want to flesh it out inside and outside of the walls. We then got the different factions in here. So we've got the Mining Guild. Well, I should say each of the factions do have, so they'll talk about faction leaders, that's maybe secretaries, and they'll talk about their motivations, what they're looking to do, and some of them obviously conflict. And some of the main people in the factions, they may rest from sort of acolytes, cultist, guards, and it just gives you a key down here in the bottom left-hand side of the page. But Mining Guild, as you'd imagine, they are the guild running the town, because of the mines that are around there. We've then got these grey cows, which are the warrior monks that are protecting the town, and their job really is to go and kill all of the undead and the zombies and ghouls that are around. Two different merchant houses sort of fighting out amongst themselves. The Hacklebergs green and the Verters wear blue, and they've been accused of brigands, thieves, assaults, and they're sort of having an ongoing trade war, as you would imagine. The Blue Lancers are, well, they're technically the police, so they're a mercenary company from the pirate city of Demola, and they're led by a flamboyant leader. They've got a 1-year contract, and it does say they are currently sticking to their contract. Okay. Then we've got the Cult of Magnus, which outside the palisades of the fort, they are a new. It's a priest that's outside. He's preaching about fire and brimstone. That you kind of get the impression that nobody inside the fort actually wants there. So there's obviously all this tension. And then we've got 3 other NPCs. So we've got this Gregor Blick, which is a witch hunter, who's a level 6 sentinel. A Cassandra Stromberg, who's a fence, obviously buying and selling things. And then we've got this watch sergeant, Renhart Grun. So it's quite nice. We've got the stats actually for the witch hunter here. But you've got some good different factions, some good factions that will bounce off each other. Leaders of the factions as well as then 3 other NPCs. Some gossip in the town as well. So things like the witch hunters has discovered something terribly afoot in Fort Durance, but no one knows what. So this will just give you an idea of sort of setting some rumours and things that are going on in the town, well, the fort. And then 8 jobs over on the next page. And we'll just look, so demolition crew, an experienced crowd control operator needs an upcoming destruction project in New Durance. Hazard pay paid deadly. So this is just a really good little area to build your sort of starting campaign out, because obviously one of the toughest parts if you are going to do a hex crawl from scratch is that you kind of need to sort of flesh out the world. There's a fair bit in here to sort of get going. And then you can use these job huntings just to sort of go out and discover things on the hex that's going on. Obviously, if your players want to go outside. The corruption rule, this slight update to Shadows of Empire and just sort of a bit of a clarification. But what is nice here is we have now got this new priest spell, which will actually help the players heal corruption, because rules is written in the original book, core book, I don't know what to call it, main book, we'll go with that. It's very, very difficult to get rid of corruption. The rest of the book now is going through the Durance file, which is a Shadows of Empire adventure, which, as you can see, is levels 4 to 8. So if you're going to run this, you need to, obviously, the one thing to think about is the fact that if you're going to start the hex crawl campaign, you've got to kind of put the players off going to this mine until they are levels 4 to 8, because they're going to have a torrid time. So you're going to kind of want to not throw any adventure hooks up to go to this particular mine. So I would just keep this mine as a place where, everything's functioning, everything's running well, which it kind of is. There's a point where, say 2 weeks ago here in the mine, things start to go wrong. So what actually happens in the mine is, so this mine has existed for centuries. 50 years ago, they dug too deep. This will sound familiar, Balrog, anyone, but it's slightly different. But they basically discovered a chaos temple in the lowest levels, which we saw on the maps. Most of them died in there once they discovered it, but They then barricaded off all the zombies and all the mines, but carried on mining as you do. But there's huge black crystal deposits in the mine as well, which is your warpstone equivalent, which is slowly mutating the remaining zombies within there. Recently, 2 weeks ago, a new mining team arrived to survey the mine and make it safe for mining. But then 3 days ago, the Skaven Gutterkin dug up the mine down from below, stole the supplies, took the miners captive, so no one's heard from them. So personally, keep this as a functioning mine, or just a completely destitute mine and no one's working, and build it into the story as the players start to level up, because you're going to want to take the players here, because this is really good. It's also really well laid out. The mines themselves, so it's levels 1 to 3 are the mines, level 4 is the temple. Things go really wrong in the temple, but there's actually building all the way through. I do like what Fenris has done here within this. Just the layout of the mine talks about the walls, the ceiling, heights, floors. All the doors are quite easy to go through because they are rotten. And then once you get down into the temple, these are more, a structured walls. They're higher ceilings. The doors are going to be harder to break through, and they're jet black flagstone floors, a little bit of dust. The floors in the mine, flat, rough, covered in dust. Levels 1 to 3 are unsafe. Level 4 is risky, so you're going to be rolling for random encounters more often. There's no light in here. It's a mine, obviously. However, the Gutterkin are not dark to adapt. So when you're going to discover the Gutterkin, they're also going to have torches too, so the players will be able to see those in the distance. Each level has different encounter tables. All the stat blocks, I really appreciate this, are next to where they need to be. Also, we'll see when we get to it, the maps are player facing as well. We've got these shafts, which it took me a quick second to work out, but they go A, B, C, D, I think. But it just shows you where they start and end, because there are shafts that go up and down. And then throughout the mine, there are the shrines here to El Diablo, which is a little bit of a sort of tease for the players, which the Gutterkin are going to want to pray at and put the coins on to gain their sort of negative boons. But as the players start to interact with them, there's a chance they might start losing experience, because they're going to be getting, chance for corruption. There's 2 different factions in here. So we've got the Undead and the Gutterkin. And it does talk about over here is make them play off each other, because the Gutterkin are cowardly creatures led by this White Seer. But their orders are basically to just get into the mine, take the black rock, take any items that they find, and to avoid the zombies. The zombies, mindless zombies. What you can do, or what smart players will be doing, is leading the zombies to attack the Gutterkin so they can move around the mine more freely. As you kill Gutterkin, because they're going to die, we've got a D10 table of just what's in their pockets. So how does the adventure kick off? Obviously, they're going to go up the hills and the mountains up to the camp. And the camp itself is a collection of tents, but not as you'd expect, because the tents now have been damaged, ripped apart. There's no items in the tents that apart from a shoe, a torn book, and a few socks. And we're going to get a diary that the players will then read. It gives a tease into the adventure. There's also an office stores with a few bits of paper, and more importantly, some explosives, which the players hopefully will take to go and play with. We then get into level 1 themselves. So I'm not going to fully take you through exactly what's going on, because I think this is more for you to go and discover. But each level will have the encounters and then some evocative moment that's going to take place. So this, again, is just building on the theme. But it's a very well laid out and structured map. So the keys are nice and easy. And as we go through, so here we go, the letter A, which as we scroll down just to the next level, I'm just going to show the example. That pairs with level 2. So that's going to show you where you start and then come down. I'll just scroll back now. And as you can see, it's nice and clear. So the keys are here. We've got some barricades as well, which took me a second to spot, because there are actually 3 on this map. And because we've got 6 here is the barricaded zombies. But it does deal with it. It talks about the noises behind. So this is what I mean about the maps as well. So each of the player-facing pages, you will have, so the zombies in this section. So the zombies are in the to the sidebar, as well as the maps as well, and it's sort of darkened to show. You will basically be able to read the description of the room and then the layout of what's going on, and it actually really nicely lays out the exits and entrances from the rooms as well, and takes you across. The amount of work on this adventure alone, I think, is just worth the money for this, because it's a really good laid out adventure. It looks really easy and simple to run. So each level, it's got its own encounters and evocative moments as well. And what I like is these little bits here, which is, you know, you can go either up or down. You know, do you use the stairs, or do they descend down into A and then they find this other route down here from B down to the next floor? You know, do you take the stair route, or are you going to go through? And this is an office, so it's, again, thought out. You've actually got a office where people have been working when this is actually an active mine. And also, it's got a supply room, as it would do, and more barricaded zombies in here. And then we're starting now to get into the Gutterkin guards on level 2. Level 3 is where we're starting to see more of what's going on. And also, we've got these points here that are just, there's these 4 points out where it says Deadfall. And this kind of took me a while to work out, because I couldn't find anything in the key about what the Deadfall meant. Again, not an idiot. I could kind of gather that Deadfall means they're going to fall and like a trap. And it's actually here, on here. So right at the start here, it's got to talk about Deadfall. Deadfall marked on the map. Players will fall for NPCs on a 1 in 6 chance, doing a D8 damage. It's in here, but I'd say it just took me a little bit, because it's I don't know, I didn't expect it to actually be in the key of the room, but I've told you where it is, so you now know where it is. This is more of the Skaven bit now, so we're then going to got more. There's a lot more Skaven people. We've got people at work now, actually, so there's slaves in here, mostly humans, but some other Skavens as well, sort of slaving away, digging out the black rock in here. There's also a mad scientist that is creating grenades and explosives, as you'd expect. A couple of rat ogres just having a picnic that aren't going to be impressed. Well, I probably should have said this from the start. This is a little bit of an adult adventure, because, well, you could always change it. But they are picnicking on a dead body, which you can then search through the flesh and the blood. So, again, depending on your group, you might want to just change that to having a nice picnic, because for rat ogres. But you've got all the stats on. I just like, this is really well laid out. And level 4 is where it's going to go very badly wrong, potentially because of one of the creatures in here, which is cool. So we've got a little bit of writing sort of scratched into the walls, because the only way down is this sea shaft here that the players are going to be able to get down into, because the rest of it is sort of blocked off. And eventually, as they go through and discover, it's like the rat nest, so there's going to be a lot of Skaven in here. Sorry, Gutter King in here. I must say that for legal reasons, but eventually they might, and hopefully they're going to come across this, the thing, which is it's basically at least a dozen zombies that have mutated into this giant ball type of flesh that's all working together, that looks like it's not going to fit through the doors, but it can do. And once that gets released, because you open that door, it's coming out, it then doesn't care what it attacks. And what I like about that, it actually talks about it, is because it will attack the nearest thing. So what the players can do is manipulate these Skaven or zombies to be, you know, nearer the thing, so it actually will start attacking stuff. And you can use it just as a retreat to sort of help to get out and help the players survive. But eventually they will find, you know, the White Seer themselves, kill the Gutterkin, find this magical sword, which is really good at damaging demons, or demons will do hate the bear and they're going to prioritize them. But it's a +2 magical sword in here as well, and it's a lawful sword. And then finally, we've got the concise beastry here as well. And then that's it. That is the back and end of the book. So let's just go through my final thoughts. Let's just start with the one glaring error that I keep I picked up a few times in the book, and that is really to do with grammatical errors and spelling. Well, if I spot it, then obviously other people are going to be spotting it. But the good thing is this is a PDF copy, and it's not a physical copy, so it does mean over time that this will be corrected. I'm sure from here, Fenris will pick me up and go, "What did you spot?" And we can clear it up. And then obviously, because you don't get these as print on demand straight away. It takes a little bit of time to sort it out, so we can get it done. But the adventure, I think the adventure itself is just worth it alone. And the fact that you then get a hex crawl adventure to build out, as well as a load of new rules for zombies, is really good. The layout of the book, it's a little bit higgledy-piggledy. Personally, I think I would have put all the rules at the start, so where you're going through the layout for the book. Then get into zombies, how the zombies work. Bit of maybe put some of the beastry in there. And then obviously put the Gutterkin stuff. Then get into the hex crawl and Fort Durance and the adventure. That's just a personal thing. To me, it just flows a little bit nicer. But as a Warhammer-esque world, I think it's going to fit perfectly. So the downside is you do need to buy Shadows of Empire to run this, just because of a couple of weapons and the corruption rules, because you're going to want to run the full-on corruption. When I reviewed Shadows of Empire, I was like, I really want to see where it goes from here. Is the next thing going to be as good? Do I want it? Yes, and yes. This, other than layout, I say, and there's a little bit, actually the hex crawl map, the numbers could do with being clearer, or the keys could just be better. But other than that, the information that's in here, for me to go and create a campaign and run a campaign in this world is brilliant. I can then combine this with the adventure. Actually, I've got to get up to level 4, but that's good because there's lots of hex crawling thing. I think had this just been here's your map, here's your world, and here's Fort Durance, and you can play a Gutterkin, and here's a 4th level adventure, you'd be like, okay, it's not bad value. Well, it's still really good value. But how am I going to get people to level 4? Do I start off, do I start them at level 4? How do I build to it? But you don't need to. You can have all your fun and adventures in the hex crawl area. And also, because if you get Shadows of Empire, there are a level 1 adventure built in there. There's a level 2 adventure in there as well. And then we've got up to level 4. So what you can do is put those tombs, because you've got to buy the first book, you've put those tombs then into random areas, well, within hex crawls. I wouldn't do it random. Plot it all out. Use the rumours to get the players out there. And you're now starting to flesh out a whole campaign world setting. It does say this is the first, which means there should be more. Fenris hasn't told me whether there's more coming. I'm assuming there's going to be more coming. Based on this, I think we're going to see more coming because it is really good. So, a couple of niggles on hex crawls and that, but, this is very early in this creator's, I think it's maybe 6 or 7 books in total. So, yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it. And I think you will too. If you do want to pick this up, please do consider using my affiliate link for both this and Shadows of Empire. And if you've enjoyed this video, please do like, share, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you on the next one. Thank you for watching.